I think we can go and get started, and
Sure.
if more people come in, we'll make them stand up and introduce themselves and tell them we all did an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Everyone go along with that?
Tell
Okay,
us your
good.
most embarrassing story.
So welcome to the Insight Lab about mobile paid search. And to make things exciting, we wanted to have an exciting title. So this is Mobile Paid Search, No Longer Optional. All
Bum,
right?
bum, bum.
Now, we say that kind of jokingly, but hopefully the point that you'll walk away from today is that mobile paid search is incredibly valuable. It's where your audience is, and it is no longer optional. You need to be present there. So I'm Jeremy Hull, Director of Bought Media at iProspect.
And I am Jessie Derian, Regional Director of Paid Search for the Midwest.
And as you heard yesterday, and as the timing was so fortuitous, Google announced last week, we have now crossed that threshold where mobile paid search, or mobile search in general, makes up the majority of impression volume happening. This is something that we've been seeing for a while, we've been predicting for a while. It happened briefly last holiday on Black Friday. There was more mobile search volume than desktop search volume. But Google just announced last week, and this is on the AdWords blog, they're seeing more searches taking place on mobile devices and computers on a consistent basis in 10 countries. So there's no putting the genie back in the bottle, there's no moving back. This is happening, and this is a very, very real trend. Stepping away from the bigger picture and looking at iProspect specifically, Google was nice enough to take a look at our client set. This is a chart showing the blue is desktop queries, this is impressions, and the red are mobile queries. And what you'll see right around here is, weirdly enough, this week, I think Albert pulled this for us a year ago. This week was where it was predicted and measured, and he just updated this for the presentation. So for our client set, this is holding true as well. We're right in line with the industry, where search volume is happening more on mobile devices. The problem with this in the industry as a whole is that advertisers are still behind the times. This is a chart from eMarketer showing advertisers who are advertising, they are opted into mobile campaigns, they are showing on mobile, who have designed mobile-specific campaigns. 62% of them are serving on mobile devices but haven't taken the time or don't have the understanding to design a mobile-specific experience. They're just taking whatever they're doing on desktop and either intentionally opting in or, I don't see any Googlers in the room, unintentionally being opted in and not building a mobile-specific strategy. So this is definitely concerning because it's not only, if you're not showing on mobile, that's a missed opportunity and it's an opportunity for a competitor to get in front of your audience. But if you are showing on mobile without an intentional mobile strategy, that's putting your brand in front of a consumer and encouraging them to have a bad brand experience because you're not understanding and being relevant to them. There are a lot of reasons that brands are having trouble with this. Here are just some of the examples, and these are all valid challenges. Whether it's mobile's hard to track, it has different KPIs, it doesn't drive to my success. I'm a B2B client, so I don't have an app, so what should I do on mobile? Sometimes it's based on how your company is structured. If your mandate is to drive digital sales, and that's what you're measured on, that's what you're bonused on, why would you want to spend a penny on a channel that's driving sales in store and give the guy down the hall or in the other building credit? So ultimately, these are all valid challenges, but as your partner, our goal is to partner with you and find ways to overcome these challenges and find a way to make mobile make sense for your brand and for your strategy. So in order to do that, we're going to get to the meat of today's session. We're going to give you 4 specific things that you need to do to see success in mobile. The first is understand what your mobile audience wants. Not just the mobile audience in general, but your audience. What are they looking for and how can you be a valid solution to them when they're searching on mobile? Second is give them different ways to interact with your brand. You don't just want to show them a blue link with a generic marketing message. You want to understand where they are and give them different ways that are suited to your brand's strengths for them to interact with you. The third is measure all KPIs. So there's still a lot of debate about how you should give credit to mobile and how you count that success. But even before you figure that out, make sure you're starting to measure and accrue data so that you can mine it in the future. And I love this, my favorite part of this presentation, because there's so many cool KPIs that are released that you can take advantage of now that are free. They're in your account. They're just hidden behind a menu. And then finally, align your online and offline strategy, because mobile search is so often the glue that connects an offline experience to an online experience. Make sure you understand what you're doing offline so you can continue that conversation online. And I use the word conversation a lot in reference to search because it is a conversation. It's a user-initiated conversation. And so we're going to start with understanding what your mobile audience wants, and to do that, you have to be a good conversational partner and start by listening.
The great thing about paid search is that the user's telling you exactly what they want, right? There's this element of declared intent. They're putting a keyword in there. So by structuring your campaigns, using our best practices and being very granular, you're already one leg up on getting them the experience they want. But there's so much more going on in the mobile space that we have to be thinking about. That user's location, the time of day, they can be anywhere on their mobile phone. They could be anywhere in the purchase path, right? Moving down the funnel. We have to understand where they are in that journey and respond in a way that makes sense, that is adaptive and personal. Sam talked a lot about making a intimate experience, I think was the word he used. I didn't particularly like that word, but a personal experience through their mobile device. So a couple of ways that we would recommend that you do this. First of all, look at your site data. How are people interacting on your m.dot site differently than your desktop site? What are they searching for on mobile that's different than desktop, right? It's a different search engine, or a different search experience. They may be searching smaller phrases, there we go. Or you could be seeing them drop off in a different place on mobile than they are on desktop, and understanding that you sit on a ton of your own data and you're able to kind of slice and dice the difference there. We also learned yesterday from Pablo at Google that the number of people including near me in a search has doubled in the last year. Right? I personally don't do that, but just because Google typically knows the answer and tells me where the Thai food is that's near me. But just thinking about giving that user quick and easy access to a store locator if you have physical locations is something that needs to be considered in this day and age. You can also look at Google Trends, right? What are people searching for? How are things changing? Just like Pablo mentioned with the near me. Things like that are changing constantly, and the Google Trends data that we can see will help us understand that consumer journey. And finally, Sam Houston talked yesterday about CCS. It's a really, really powerful tool. And the true value that we have in CCS that's available to all iProspect clients is the information that we get on their digital consumption, right? It's deeper into digital than any survey of its kind. So we can really understand what makes our user tick and how we can address them in a very personal and relevant way. A way we've done this recently was actually with Bass Pro Shops. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Bass Pro? Great. So what we found about the Bass Pro consumers is that they were really, really interested in being in the store. And if you've ever been to a Bass Pro store, you know exactly why that is, right? It's a really unique experience. Sometimes there's even like a brewery or something like that inside the store, but also the way they've decorated the whole thing is just, it's an incredible experience. That's different than some other retail brands, right? Other retail brands, there's more people pushing online. But for Bass Pro, for that reason, we actually created a granular campaign structure to go in and say, if you're within a reasonable driving distance from a store and you're searching for us, we are gonna have a message that is gonna get you into the store. Right? And what's great about that is that we're able to break away from the e-com side of that, because that direct response metric isn't going to be there, right? They're not going to convert online, but we want them to come in the store because that's what they want. So things like that and insights that we can glean so that we can take that granular campaign structure that we've already developed at the keyword level and slice and dice it in a way that is more relevant and impactful for mobile. The next is giving them different ways to interact. So now you understand what it is that they want, where they are. We have to set up our messaging in such a way that is responding to that need. What's great is we have a lot of different options in mobile of how a user can interact. You see a couple up here. Obviously going to your m.dot site is one way, but they can also make a call, they can also download an app. Making sure that you are having that intentional mobile strategy behind your messaging is a very important thing now that you've understood the data, actually putting it into practice. One of the most unique things that somebody can do on a phone easier than anywhere else is make a phone call. For many brands, this is brands where you are able to actually call in and call to a call center is a really valuable interaction point, right? So when you get somebody on a phone, it's a lot harder to say no when they're selling you something than when you're online, right? So I want to give you a really quick example of how we utilize this for NRG. If you're not familiar, NRG is a portfolio of brands that supplies energy. They supply energy to over 3 million homes and businesses in the United States. And they have found that users that pick up the phone and call them are 10 times more likely to convert than somebody that clicks to their website. That's huge. And so the power to be able to get somebody to actually pick up the phone and get get on the phone with one of their representatives is significant. And what Google has available to all advertisers today, so if that's something that applies to you, is called call-only campaigns. This came out for everybody in March of this year. With our partnership with Google, we were able to get NRG into a beta for this actually over a year ago. So we've been running call-only campaigns basically since enhanced campaigns came out and Google took our capability of running these away. They were in the last meeting, so I wasn't able to say that, but they're not here, so I'll have at it. So for NRG, you'll see an example of these call-only ads. Reliant at the top, Green Mountain, two of their many brands that they own nationwide. We started these about little over a year ago, and we were able to see call sale volume grow 35% year over year with almost no increase in investment, and that was 2 times the rate of desktop sales. So really, really strong and powerful metrics here, and something that if you are a brand that has a call center or sees that value in that interaction, you should absolutely be testing this. Another unique interaction is actually app downloads. Now, there was some debate yesterday about whether it's actually valuable to have an app or not, and I think that's certainly a conversation that needs to be had and something that you need to be thinking about. The example I'm going to give you today is around hotels. Especially with the proliferation of connected devices and the Apple Watch and Google Now and what have you, the hotel industry is one where it's going to be really important to have that touch point, right? That ongoing touch point with the consumer. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Atlanta for a business trip a couple weeks ago. I'm sure most of you do business travel, and you've had this experience where you get in late, it's like 11 o'clock at night, you don't want to talk to anybody, you have an 8 a.m. meeting, it's terrible. I was able to open my hotel app, check into my room, use it as my room key, check out of my room, so I didn't have to talk to anybody, which is exactly what I wanted to do, right? They probably wouldn't have wanted to talk to me either. But think about the value in that and something that's not going to be captured in a direct response metric, right? You're not going to see that in an ROI, but that's absolutely creating loyalty for that brand. An example of how we've done a cross-channel app initiative is for Hilton. Hilton obviously is an international chain of full-service hotel brands. I'm sure you've heard of them, probably. They actually relaunched their Hilton Honors app recently, and what they wanted to do behind that was actually increase the number of downloads, right? Increase that interaction that they have with the consumer in an ongoing fashion. Search was at the core of this, but this was cross-channel. They went out everywhere. It was on their website. It was on through display, et cetera. And they utilize Google's app download format. So this is another format where this is literally all they can do. They can just click to download the app. And day over day, they were able to see a 400% increase in number of app downloads with things like Google Now and the Apple Watch. Think about the power of having that just so you can start making that connection and have those touch points over time.
One of the ongoing historic challenges with mobile search and mobile advertising in general is measurement. Luckily, there's some really, really compelling ways to measure success that are available to you now. So here are just 4 examples. The first one is use your own data. Just like Jesse said earlier, take a moment before you do any crazy investments or build any new reports and just look at what's going on in your site analytics data, and Adobe Analytics, Google Analytics, Core Metrics. Is anyone still using, yeah, there were a few others. But dig into that data, see how people are interacting with your brand on the mobile experience, and see what you can learn from that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Google AdWords cross-device conversions. This is freaking cool. Everybody should be using it, all right? Because if you have AdWords conversion tracking, you have this in your account. It's free, it's live. Annoyingly, it's hidden behind a menu, so you have to go hunt for it. What this does is Google surfaces users who interacted with a paid search ad on one device and then made a purchase on another device. Now, this could be someone going from mobile to desktop. This could also be someone going from their work computer, researching during the day, to their home computer, purchasing at night. These are conversions that historically there was no thread connecting them through to that path to conversion because changing devices breaks the cookie, and we're still kind of trapped in a cookie world. But what this does is it uses signed-in users, Android users, Chrome users, people that are in the Google ecosystem, and tracks that behavior. It is not 100% of the audience, but it's a good sample set. And when it hits statistical significance, Google takes this data and extrapolates out what that number would be if they had 100% visibility. So a lot of people get stuck on the fact that it's an estimate. And I would encourage you to understand what that estimate means. This is not a number we would ever add to our tracked conversions. This is usually not even a number that we add to a weekly report in a new column. What you should look at it as is a baseline. Historically, if you wanted to find out what your audience was doing across devices, you had to hire Forrester or someone, you had to do a bunch of surveys, you had to spend a bunch of money, and then great, you've got a number. It cost 180 grand to get this number, so we're going to use this number for the next 5 years. That really doesn't give you any insights into how your strategies are impacting that. With cross-device conversions, you're able to see how users are interacting on different devices and how they're purchasing or interacting with your brand, completing that conversion elsewhere. And then change your strategy. Heavy up in mobile, pull back in mobile, change your ad type, and see how that affects how the customer is moving through that conversion cycle. So I would encourage everyone to start looking at this data. Google just this week released a lot more information about how this is calculated as well. The next one is Google AdWords store visits. This is another piece of estimated total conversions. It walks that fine line between useful and creepy, right? So they're not sharing any personally identifiable information. Instead, they're using that same audience, Android users, people in the Google ecosystem, that interact with your ad on any device, and then using the GPS data in their Android phone, go to a physical location, and then tick that as a conversion. This person interacted with a paid search ad, and then I think, is it the next 15 days, 30 days, something like that, went in store. And that just ticks as a conversion. It's incredibly useful, and once again, it's free. And all you have to do to set it up is make sure you have your Google Maps data updated so Google knows where your stores are. And then finally, if you want to get a little bit more specific, you can use a resource like LiveRamp or Epsilon to connect your offline CRM, your conversion database, with your online activity, doing a cookie match, doing an audience profile match. Again, this is not sharing any personally identifiable information. When I first heard about this solution, I got really excited. I was like, this is going to be so cool. We're going to get really deep insights, but I don't know how many brands are going to want to go through the effort and expense to do that. So I talked with one brand that was testing it, and then I think it was like 2 months later, I mentioned it in an all-company meeting, and like 4 different teams raised their hands and said, yeah, we're already doing it. I mean, they were just like going ahead and not telling me. I thought it was going to be a big fight. I was kind of gearing up for that. So this is incredibly successful, and all of these allow you to measure the impact that this mobile strategy has in a measurable, ongoing way so that you can test your strategies and adjust and learn.
And something to think about here is it's not just about mobile in this case, right? So this is measuring additional interaction points with your brand. Are they going into your store? Are they going across devices and searching and ultimately making a conversion? So when Google went through, or Google has done a lot of research and data and giving you tools so that you can pull this data, and when they aggregated the view of all data and the value that this is adding, they actually saw that for desktop campaigns, this showed about 2 times more conversions than what you're counting. For mobile campaigns, it was 10 times more conversions than you're counting. So it makes a much bigger impact in mobile because that user is on the go. I think that makes sense, but just something to keep in mind is for those of you in this room that are held to an online ROI, there are some powerful numbers here that can be used to help prove the value of investing more in the digital space.
As a specific example of some of the success we've seen, specifically with a LiveRamp implementation, with one of our clients, a retail client, we integrated their online and offline sales using a LiveRamp integration for their in-store sales. This is an example looking at just their trademark keywords on a smartphone. And people sometimes ask me, hey, what's a good conversion rate? And I always kind of go, it depends on your brand. Well, I'll go on record as saying a 2.6 conversion rate on mobile, I think is pretty darn good. Like, I would be happy with that as a retailer. So that's what we were seeing just for online conversions. People clicked on the trademark ad, they purchased, they bought right there on their phone. Great, I'm happy with that. And normally we just kind of like close the book, that'd be our ending slide in our QBR, and we'd be like, peace out, right? So, peace out, that felt really awkward, sorry.
It looks pretty awkward too.
So when we were able to look at this additional data, we found that that existing strategy, we uncovered that users interacting with these trademark ads and then going to the store actually had a 3.6 conversion rate. That's in addition to the people that purchased online. So it's nothing that we were doing differently that was causing this change in behavior. It's uncovering existing behavior, being able to attribute that back to which campaign, which strategy is actually driving that. So the 4th thing we'd like to leave you with today is align your online and offline strategies. Mobile search is also often the glue that connects an offline message, a way you're reaching someone elsewhere, and your brand experience, because they see a message, their response is to search. So first of all, make sure you align your messaging. Understand what that go-to-market message is, understand how people are going to respond, and use search as a conversation to move them along. You don't want to just repeat that message. You want to figure out, okay, what are they going to take away from that and be looking to do, and set up search as a way to move them further along in that conversation. Additionally, you want to make sure that you're aligning your scheduling and your strategy, and you're also taking advantage of the great data that search provides. For a number of our clients, over the past year and a half, we've been able to get more and more involved in conversations with their TV planning team, understanding when they're running TV spots, which geographical areas they're running them, and then using search to mine and measure the success of TV by people second screening and responding by doing a search during those time periods. So this is, a scientific way to approach it. It's by no means the only measure of success for TV, but it's a great way to see how impactful were those TV spots in those specific areas by measuring folks second screening and doing a search. Jesse talked about Google Trends earlier. Google Trends is a great tool, but it shows high-level data. Weirdly enough, if you're spending money with Google, they let you slice and dice that data even more granularly. It's a strange thing. So taking a look at our trademark terms on exact match for those geographic areas, for those specific times of day, for tablet and smartphone, getting a baseline, then knowing that the TV ad ran and seeing how many more people searched, again, just within that specific subset of your audience, and then feeding that back into the TV team the very next day. And every time we've been able to do that, this is a wealth of information. Search is the world's largest ongoing consumer survey, and mining it for that data, in addition to the success you're driving for your audience, and feeding that back into the planning team is a great way to identify new opportunities and really make sure your overall media strategy is extremely cohesive. So, one of the things that we like doing when we present these kinds of insight labs is ending with a scare tactic. So here's your scare tactic. Over 50%. That's how much of your audience is now on mobile, and that's how much you're going to miss if you don't have an intentional, strategic mobile approach. All right? Everyone scared? Did it work? No, this is, it's really important to think that your audience is there. You don't have to build this, you don't have to encourage them. They're looking for your brand there. And if you're not present, that's a chance for another brand to come up and steal that conversation away and move them down their conversion path. Even worse, if you are there and you aren't listening to their context, you aren't listening to those secondary signals and building those ad types, you're going to give them a bad brand experience and chase them away yourself. So make sure you understand what your consumer's doing on mobile. You respond and give them different ways to interact with your brand that makes sense for their context. Are they near a store? Is calling more valuable for your brand for like a B2B client? And then make sure that you're measuring all the KPIs that make sense. Go ahead and make sure you get this set up. Like, you don't have to figure out what all these KPIs mean right now. You don't have to figure out how they roll into an ROI this week. But make sure you're collecting them so that you have that historic information in mind. And then finally, make sure you align your online and offline strategies so that you can use search as a continuous conversation and wait for consumers to respond to that other messaging you're pushing to market. All right, any questions?
I had a question. Oh, is there
Go
one
ahead.
there? I just had a question on like the pixel window for the cross-device conversion.
Mm-hmm.
What is the time difference? So if I search on my mobile phone and then ultimately convert on a desktop, what's that window that they'll
I believe it uses whatever conversion window you have set for your Google AdWords conversion pixel.
Yeah, I think it's customizable.
So you can, you can set it for whatever makes sense for your brand.
Great.
Google is building out that report more and more. Again, they're not in the room right now, so I can tell you they're about to surface attribution search funnels across device, which is going to be very, very fun. You and I are going to have
Just
fun
giving away
digging
the
into
whole
that.
farm here.
Yeah. And the next thing I would like to see is have that search funnel data, have it timestamped. I think initially it's just going to be the path by keyword across devices, but ultimately having that timestamp data is going to be really cool and allows us to run some tests for how long that window should be.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I had a question about the difference between B2C and B2B when it comes to mobile search, because I think B2B is probably lagging behind. So what kind of a difference do you see there? Because I work for B2B, and I think our mobile traffic is 10–15% at the moment, so it's way lower than a lot of the B2C.
Sure, and I think if everyone is going to be different, right? So the general average is at the 50%. You're only at 10 to 15%. That doesn't mean that it's not going to get there, and so it's still absolutely valuable to be thinking about mobile today. And for B2B clients across the board, those call-only ads, and I'm not sure what your company is or does specifically, but those call-only ads have been very, very successful in getting people to call in, pick up the phone. So something to be thinking about. It's certainly probably not as pressing, or this number is a little bit different for you today, but I think we can all predict that it will move to that quickly.
I would also make sure you're looking at other signals of intent such as time of day. So when is it valuable to get in front of that B2B person on the mobile device? They may be searching more in the evenings when they're off work, but is that the time you want to get the message in front of them? So just look at other signals of intent as well to figure out when is the most effective time to be present and what message would be valuable to them.
Okay, thanks.
Fantastic. All right, thank you guys very much.